case was barely pocket change to the company. Given this information, I'm sure you'll do your best to prevent history from repeating itself. This industry needs regulation and needs it very badly. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will provide for you a copy of my full comments.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll make those part of the record. Other support witnesses, please come up. Just give your name and your organization and your support for the bill.
I'm Alan Davenport. I represent the Service Employees International Union. We represent workers at Disneyland, and we're in support of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Davenport.
Pat Moran with the California State Firefighters Association, also in support of the bill.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support? Let's take questions from members of the committee. Mr. Aller.
Well, first, we hear this. We hear the witnesses talk about the horrific things that have happened. Your son and your daughter, and I don't know if anybody else in this audience or in this panel can listen to that kind of testimony and not think about their own children and how happy we are that ours are okay. Bless your heart for being here. All of us want to have our children safe, and they want to make sure that the rides that they go on in these amusement parks are safe. And I really do want to commend Mr. Torlakson for his efforts in this regard. And I have a couple specific points and questions that I want to ask. First, I'm pleased with the amendments that you offered with respect to the definition of a serious injury. That was a critical element of this for me and my whether I would support or oppose this bill. I would also like to say that I know that your intention here is not to slam Disneyland or Marriott's or any other organization. That for the most part, I think, based upon the evidence of the number of rides taken per year and the number of accidents is really quite good on balance. Certainly there is room for improvement. But I don't know what that total number is, and I'd like to know what the total number of accidents in the year that was cited, 1998. Do we know how many rides were taken, how many person rides were for the number of accidents? That, I think, is a point that would be of interest.
We don't have the record-keeping system that this bill would enable to establish, so we don't have that data hard. We have information about medical emergency calls to different places, such as Disneyland, not knowing, though, which of those are related to the ride or some other incident that may have occurred on the grounds.
They're not divided out by who's responsible either. I understand that. There are certain activities that we know are inherently unsafe in one way or another. Mm-hmm. Riding a motorcycle is inherently unsafe. I think riding a bicycle is inherently unsafe. I know as far as my kids are concerned, it's proven to be quite unsafe. Riding roller skates, skiing, there's a number of things. Swimming in a pool or in another body of water can be quite unsafe. What we want to get at here, and I think it's clear that's what your intention is to get at those things that are correctable and not affect adversely those companies that have amusement rides for the things that are outside of their realm of control. And that's why you've delineated in your amendment so well, and I'm very pleased about that. I do have a question I want to ask as to what the purpose was initially in establishing the law that regulated and brought about the inspection of the mobile rides, amusement parks that are moved from fair to fair and things like that. Why was that done when it was done and the stationary ones were not done at the same time? I'm curious about that.
My understanding of that, and we had asked the California Research Bureau, an arm of the State Library that does research for us in the legislature, to do a background check on the legislative history. And there was an incident, an accident, a tragedy that occurred about 32 years ago, and it led to the legislation 31 years ago. As the legislation was moving on, the California Research Report indicates that the fixed amusement parks of California lobbied against being included in that legislation. So the legislation which Mr. Zenovich originally proposed to cover all amusement parks was amended to delete out the fixed parks, and therefore only carnivals have been regulated. I believe 4 or 5 other attempts have been made over that 31 years to bring the permanent parks in, but they have all failed.
I suspect that in part that, of course I wasn't present for those arguments, but I suspect that in part the reason for that was that the safety record of the permanent amusement parks was much better than the mobile ones. And perhaps the time has come when we've got to look at them, at the permanent ones as well. There is one other question that I have, and I have a concern with respect to your Amendment 1, Section 7922, and with respect to an in-house full-time safety official. It's my understanding that Disneyland and Marriott's have full-time in-house safety officials now.
Yes, many do.
I'm concerned about, so the only real teeth to this with respect to those amusement parks is perhaps the reporting. It was one element, and then heightened penalties. But you know, with due respect to the witnesses and to you, Mr. Torlakson, I think that the greatest economic damage that was done to Marriott's and in some cases to Disneyland has been the fact that the public found out these things happen and they quit going there in large numbers. I think that has happened to some extent. So the reporting part of this I find very, very good, and I think will have a positive impact. And on balance, my political views are very much like the gentleman that was here earlier, the retired inspector, that I think government ought not do things that people can do for themselves. And I'm in complete agreement with him about that point, that this is a case when we're going to have some kind of government involvement, and for that reason I'm inclined to support your bill. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you also pointing out in Amendment 1, what is attempted to do here is to clarify that these in-house inspectors who have worked hard and have great expertise but are not required everywhere, that they would be subject to getting state certification. So the eyes of the state would be there in reviewing the high standard that would be established. So these inspectors, whether they're from an insurance company, from the manufacturer of a ride, or whether they're in-house safety staff hired by the company, would meet this level of expertise and training so that we would be able to certify that through the state certification process their expertise. And
Thank you very much.
thank you, Mr. Oler.
Thank you. Dr. Romero.
Mr. Torlakson, again, too, I commend you for bringing forward the bill. I am a co-author on this bill. And I'd just like to share just briefly a personal story as to what my interest was. As a resident of Southern California, I frequently have visited our permanent amusement parks, have taken my children, my family. On one occasion, I was attempting to board a ride. A bar fell down. I did suffer a slight injury. But I know that as I went forward to get first aid treatment, I began to wonder if my head had been tilted in a little bit different direction, what impact it might have had. That might have brought about a more serious injury to my eye. And I began to wonder about other people who might possibly have gone through injuries attempting to board or disembark from a particular ride. So when I entered the legislature, learned about your legislation, as you recall, that's when I went to you and shared with you my story and said I'm very much interested as a mother, as a parent, as somebody who enjoys the thrills and the joy that I think our amusement parks do provide to us, but also concerned about the safety considerations. I'm very pleased to have worked with the author, to have seen him work very diligently with many in California to bring about a bill that can provide for greater safety, for reporting. I know that many discussions have been held, and I think that this is an important piece of legislation that hopefully will help to prevent with greater public education some of the tragedies that we have heard about today, and to give us a greater sense of security that when we go to our amusement parks, we really can go with the full expectation that we are there for a safe and enjoyable day. And I commend you for bringing this legislation forward.
Thank you.